The Swedish people woke up just a few days ago claiming to be so surprised about the outcome of the general election that they just had. And for anyone with half a brain, it is not a surprise at all. But what I'm on here about is what is at the very, very core when it comes to democracy. We all know democracy, of all the types of governments and types of ruling that we have attempted, we know that democracy is by far the worst, but all the others are failing in so many ways that none of them really works. I must agree that sometimes I am leaning toward the conflict that Anakin Skywalker has with himself when it comes to terms of the Republic in the fictional universe of Star Wars, and how he thinks that the Senate is just squabbling and talking too much rather than getting actions done that will save people, that will help people survive, that will make their lives instantly better. And in that sense, a true dictatorship can be by the far most powerful and the most efficient one. But I'm not talking about any other type of governing, from despotism to theocracies to what have you. I'm talking about democracy now and how it works. And in Europe, we've had the election in Sweden with the outrageous surprise of all the numbskulls and wombats you have there. Because what happened? Well, for the past 5 years, the party known as Sverigedemokraterna, the Swedish Democrats, have been gaining traction, gaining momentum. But they're not gaining momentum on their platform. Their platform is utterly racist. We're talking full-blown, hardcore racism, and they're not even bothering to hide it. There are plenty of Facebook pages and everything exposing their stupidity. But it's the way these organizations, from the grassroots Facebook pages and Facebook groups to the actual people in power. Now, during the European Parliament election, the Swedish Democrats received 10.9%, or it might have been 9.9% of all the Swedish votes to get seats, to get mandates in the European Parliament. And boy, did this not sit well with the rest of the parties. Especially one party that is called the Feminist Initiative, and I thank the fucking God that I don't believe in, that they have not managed to receive power. They're by far worse. They just have a fluffy little feminist ideology thing. They are by no means, on that face value alone, not as bad as the openly racist party of Swedish Democrats is. It's just one flaw with Feminist Initiative. They have no policies that are based in any kind of reality. To put it very, very simple, because I know you people that listen to this are mainly non-interested in Sweden as such, but one of the biggest things the Feminist Initiative wants to do is completely get rid of the Swedish army. Now, yeah, the standing number today is about 10,000. It's not that strong, but it has some serious whoop-ass technology when the government can be bothered to actually pay for it. The Americans have a no-fly zone over Sweden because Sweden's junk jets seems to every now and then go up when they do breach the Swedish airspace and give them a little bit of, hey, you know what, we can sink your $1 billion airplane spycraft thingy here with our $5 Sidewinder torpedo or something. But it's not about the standing up for oneself. It's the fact that we have crises like Ukraine that is sort of created by Europe themselves being stupid, and Russia having a little bit of leadership that is wanting to have a little bit of the former glory coming back. There are a lot of other things going on as well within there, but Sweden is pretty much the northern fortress to what Russia can do up there. And whilst if Russia mobilized its entire army, they could walk all over Scandinavia. Not even the combined forces of Finland, Sweden, Norway, Denmark and Iceland would be able to really do so much. It would be enough to get the rest of the world in order. So from that standpoint, it's a decent thing to have. But the feminist initiative, they neither have the budget plans, and they don't even have a budget plan, just to put that out there. They still want to sit in the government, but they have no budget plan. And they want to completely get rid of the army. No army whatsoever. For anyone that is interested in this further, I do suggest that you look up into the Baltic region strategics, alliances and whatnot. There's plenty to read about it. There are plenty of opinionated voices on both sides. There is, however, consensus on about everyone that sits there, including the Russians, and they say Scandinavia should keep its army. Which is kind of odd, seeing as you have a party from Sweden running on the platform, let's get rid of the army. Now, let's get back to this Swedish Democrat thing, because this is where I see it so clearly, but I think that people are so deep inside the debate that they don't really understand this, that there might be a flaw somewhere. And this flaw is the Swedish Democrats that are racist. They are not being shut down because they're racist. They're being shut down through bullying tactics, or at least that's the attempt. Now, in May this year, we had the European Parliament election, and the party got 10.9% of the votes, and it was apparently a good turnout for the amount of people that voted and were eligible to vote. It was the same this past Sunday, where there was also a high turnout, and guess what? The Swedish Democrats went from, if it was 10.9 or 9.9% in the European Parliament, they now got 12.9%. So they gained 2 to 3% of the entire population that are eligible to vote. They got some 50, 60 mandates, might have even been 80. I'm not really sure how they calculate percentages into mandates like that. There are some 360 people in government in Sweden, and depending on the percentage of vote the party gets, they get to allocate certain mandates and they get certain positions. Those of you that really knows all this about how governments work rather than just politics, you can figure that out really easily. Luckily, Sweden has a rule, and I think they tried to lower it to get the feminist initiative to come in. Also another party called the Miljöpartiet de Gröna, which is the environmental party, the Greens. And well, you have the environmental party, the Greens. I think they did get into the government, and tinfoil hats is probably the best way to describe them. They're supposed to be all for the environment, but we're talking people that believe in chemtrails or whatnot. I can't even believe I used that word. It's just so... Anyway, you have them with tinfoil hat conspiracy theories, and you have the feminist initiative that have absolutely no reality-based policies whatsoever. So Swedish Democrats received almost 13% of the votes of Sweden. And the tactic continues from the main parties, and you can see, if you can put it through Google Translate, you can get the gist of any kind of blog or newspaper from Sweden, what they're writing about now. It's how to not cooperate with those 13% that belongs to these racist bastards, as they say. And it's very much a bullying and a shut-out tactic. Why do I think this is something that is important and also dangerous? Well, these 13%, 12.9%, makes up the third largest political party in Sweden. And there is about 8 of them constantly circling around. You have the red and blues that usually rake in somewhere above the 20% limit. And sometimes even 30% limit, and they can be both up at the 30% limit, which makes anyone that is good in math and health realize, whoa, that means that the Swedish Democrats are the third largest by far. They have a wide margin, and they do. And here's the thing that I think most people miss in this whole rush to bully and intimidate all these people voting for the Swedish Democrats. They fail to realize the racism isn't the issue. It's the issue that the Swedish parties and the general public in large are so intimidated by this idea that they resort to bullying tactics instead of dressing down certain points. And they're doing everything they can to shut this party out. They refuse to cooperate with them. And anything these parties says, we are gonna build better road networks. Every other party, doesn't matter what the Swedish Democrats are saying, they're trying to go as far as possible in the opposite directions. And it's the same, even if it's good policy or bad policy. But the shutout of 13% of your population is saying, we will not listen to you. We will continue our undemocratic way. And this is a very, very dangerous thing. It is threatening and bullying behavior at the very best, but it's undemocratic at the very core of it. You have to listen to what 15%, almost 15% of your population is saying. You have to cooperate with them, not completely ignore them and say that they're idiots and use bullying tactics. We saw what happened with Gamergate. And yes, the spin factory is all over Gamergate, and I can't believe that still today I can read some established blogger at big journalistic magazines still going, oh, all these women, it's so sorry, oh, there's such well-known cases of harassment and everything. If you happen to be one of these journalists or journalist bloggers or whatever that try to form an opinion about Gamergate and women in gaming and everything, trust me when I'm saying this, there is no such issue. It's not about them being women, it's about what bullshit they are up to. Anita Sarkeesian was diving straight into the Zoe Quinn bullshit that was stirring up, tweeting out that, oh, received death threats, running out of my home right now, contacted authorities. Authorities are telling me this. Policeman I talked to said this. Now we've had documentary filmmakers calling up the head of states of police in the area where she lives, in the entire state where she lives, and they have not a single trace of her doing so. Which means that she's getting caught, she's more and more desperate, she's getting caught with all these lies. And that is what it's all about. It's the lies and favoritism and the pushing of an agenda that has nothing to do with gaming culture. If you go through and look at all these websites and everything, you see that they're not talking about games, they're talking about something completely different. If you do a word focus, a word cloud analysis on this website, you will see that the word game, that should be the biggest word by far on any game website, is not. Sometimes you cannot even see that word. But I'm getting sidetracked because I'm talking about bullying in politics and democracy. And the reason I'm bringing up this and have had a long rant about Sweden and its stupidity when it comes to this racist party and its bullying is because I see the same now. I'm living in UK and been doing so for the past 10 years. And the Scottish people now having the referendum. And for anyone that isn't even remotely close to this, and I think it's only really truly visible on the sort of Scottish border or inside Scotland itself. Let me put a very, very quick outline around this. The Scottish referendum about staying in United Kingdom or getting the fuck out is only eligible and allowed and discussed within Scotland. It's not allowed. They don't want it to be talked about anywhere else. They don't want anyone else to put in their opinions, to put in their ideas, because they're so afraid that it may be contaminated. Now, they've realized that they are very, very the polls are suggesting that they're very much neck in neck. And they've resorted on both sides to bullying tactics, to proper bullying and fear-mongering tactics. So the people that are still undecided, there's about 48 hours left to go before the votes are being counted, I think it is, not being cast, because I think you can do that already. But it's very much a lot of threats and temper running wild, and people putting up a flag or a poster in their window are actually being assaulted. Or it's being reported this morning on BBC Breakfast that if you show support for one side or the other, you're being harassed, threatened, there have been some cases of violence, whatever. And this is not democracy. Democracy should be the freedom to make up your mind and cast a vote where you want to. But in all fairness, democracy is already a bought, paid for and rigged system. We already know that. If you look at America, that is bringing democracy to the world, to get into seat of power, you need to raise at least $1.1 million. I think they had an analysis that no one since the 90s has managed to get into the Senate without raising that minimum amount of money. And if you are running for an official post to get votes, I'm just gonna put it out there. If you have 10 people voting for you, and one of those 10 is handing you a £5 note with his vote and saying, hey, how about we having lunch sometime in the future? I have something I want to discuss. Who do you think is going to get that priority when it's time to make a decision? It's always going to come down to the money. It's always going to be that one person that gave you a little bit of coins. And yes, I'm using a very, very soft example, because if you have 10 people voting for you and one gives you 5, you're going, alright, that's a pint. But we're not talking about that kind of small cash, and it's happening here in UK as well. You saw that with the News of the World thing of how chummy they were trading inside information and whatnot. How bad they'd really dealt it around, no one really got to figure out, because we still have the Levinson reporters trying to be leveraged and whatnot and trying to make change about it. But it's very much this dirtiness, I think, that makes democracy so bad. But I'm gonna round off with saying why I'm not voting, why I haven't been voting. Sweden is a very simple place, and to explain why I haven't been voting. But it's not the fact that I'm lazy or anything, but it's the fact there is no candidate to vote for. I wouldn't want to vote, I would not want to give my vote to a racist party. That's a deal breaker for me. But the way the other Swedish parties have behaved is completely undemocratic, which makes all of the other parties deal breakers. And how bad is it now? Well, people are openly talking about parties that are supposed to have opposite views, that are supposed to not be able to work together, as in red and blue, as they try to divide the colors up. They're now talking about these two linking up and team working so that they don't have to deal with the third largest party in Sweden. And this lockout is unfortunately the stupidest thing the Swedish people can ever do. Because what will happen? These 13.9%, well, 12.9% will see this, and they will see it as an insult to them. They will continue to talk, mutter under their breath, that the trouble isn't racism, the trouble is that we're not being listened to. That dissent is just going to grow and grow and grow larger within the society. If Sweden continues down this path of continuing its undemocratic behavior, this party that was the third largest might very well be the second largest in 4 years' time when the next general election is in Sweden. And they have less than 9% to climb to be within reach of the second largest party in Sweden. That scares the shit out of me, that the stupidity is running so far with the bullying and harassment when it comes to democracy, when it comes to letting people choose for themselves and then following through on that decision. We don't have true democracy. We're not led by what the public want. We're led by the tiny little group that get into power after desperate scramble to get people to vote for them and bullying and harass other people. It works well for comedy to have some dog to kick at, but what I think politics have failed to realize, especially in Sweden, is shows like QI, where Stephen Fry is constantly picking on Alan and making him out to be the jester. What they fail to realize is that there are so many people liking Alan and thinking he's a good character, he's a good comedian, he has good points. He's very much the likable outsider to the main cast there. It's good for narrative, it's bad for politics. Let me know what you think, guys, in the comment section below. I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts about this. Do you think democracy is bullying? Have you any clue? Have you more insights about what the elections and everything going on here in UK is all about? I'm quite eager to hear about it because I'm feeling that I'm wasting my democratic freedom. But to be perfectly honest, I still haven't found a party that I can give a vote to. Because that's ultimately what it comes down to. You have democracy and freedom under responsibility. And I know that it's just a utopian dream, but there should really be an option of none of all of the above. None of the above. And if there are enough people taking the none of the above, the entire lineup that was set for that election gets scrapped. They're not eligible during the lifetime to reapply for government. That way we would probably get a little bit of new blood come in, new thinking, new ways of doing things. There is one setback. The people that are in place do have a good thick skin. They know when they're trying to be people trying to play them. They know when they're being put under pressure by certain entities that shouldn't have a say at all. But I still think that is one of the best things that can happen to democracy, is to introduce the none of the above. Let me know what you think about that thought, guys. Until next time, peace out.